Hello everyone. We're here with Laurel Aston again, me, myself, C.I.A, and we are here to expose the truth about her life and human trafficking and what the Central Intelligence and the shadow governments of the world did to her and what they continue to do to kids. Please keep in mind everything that you are about to hear is based on her personal experience and what she has experienced and gone through, some of it very horrific and unbelievable. But understand she has taken it upon herself to be a vessel of truth, to raise awareness for all of the children that don't have the ability to speak, all the children that have died in these horrific rituals that they consistently do to innocent people every day. And what I've done is I've made some more questions to ask her. And so here's Laurel, everyone.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you today?
Hanging in there.
Yeah,
It's brutal for both of us.
So are you ready for the first question?
I'm ready.
Okay, could you explain to our listeners about predictive programming and what you've gone through and what they've done to you with predictive programming, and just take as long as you want and just be as thorough as you want.
Predictive programming has to do with trauma-based mind control, trauma-based events, to get you to go in one direction when they'd like you to go in another. It also has to do with stripping, especially females, of any normal, loving, maternal instincts. I think one of the most dramatic instances or events of predictive programming I could give is a very complex one and has multiple layers. It is the final stage in satanic ritual abuse mind control, which is all taken directly from demonology, and it's used in the United States military in their psychological warfare program in developing mind-controlled human beings as disposable weapons. It's a program most prevalent at Tinkerfield Air Force Base under the code name the Stealth Bomber, which are disposable human weapons. In the final stage of satanic ritual abuse mind control programming, a female, typically a very young girl, it must be under the age of 16 and as young as age 9. They start giving, little girls hormones and fertility drugs to bring on their menstrual cycles in order to rape them and achieve a rape baby at a very young age. This is, like I said, it's very complex and there are multiple layers to it. It is the final stage in mind control in that it shatters the little girl's mind and creates multiple personalities and cements the programming. This did happen to me, and as I've said, it's being raped by a sick, violent man as a child, and then being forced to carry a rape baby it's 10,000 times worse than the actual act of rape, and it's being raped 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 8 to 9 months. I say 8 months because typically they induce labor early in order to traumatize the fetus and begin its mind control programming. This is the final stage in shattering the child's mind in satanic ritual abuse and cementing the programming, and it is a part of demonology. It is a part of controlling her mind and her soul. The predictive programming comes in the sense that stripping a child, a female child, of all her loving, maternal, protective instincts, in a sense that they don't want these females under such heavy mind control to fall in love and procreate babies in love. So they strip them of maternal instincts to ensure that they won't go in that direction. The very idea of falling in love and, participating in making love with a husband and making a baby in love are repulsive and disgusting. So in that way, it's predictive programming. If they get you to go left, then all human instincts would be to go right towards love. It also serves the cult in the sense that although this is the final stage in hardcore mind control, U.S. military mind control programming, and honestly, demonology is used in all military intel as cults have infiltrated every military intelligence in the world. In the more, in satanic cults in general, this type of programming is used to strip females of normal, protective, maternal instincts so that cult females grow up to be highly dysfunctional wives and mothers, in that they've been stripped of normal maternal instincts and protective instincts. They don't know what normal is. They're stripped, they're cold, they're dysfunctional, they're bipolar, they're split personalities, and they will just naturally, as brutal, cold-blooded people, step out of the way and allow the cult to program their own children. I mean, the rewards are everything is handed to high-level cult members on a silver platter. Everything comes easy. Tax breaks, education, doors fly open for careers, money. There are a lot of perks to it. And there's always, explanations other than reality given to these women to explain the abuse. And they, honestly, it's like the Kool-Aid, cyanide in the Kool-Aid. They swallow it down because they want to. It's just easier. But because they have been, with predictive programming, through satanic ritual abuse, programmed and stripped of maternal instincts, they hand their own children over to be programmed and will step out of the way while the children are subjected to trauma-based mind control in order to ensure that the child will grow up to serve the cult and keep it secret.
Wow. That's truly horrific and mind-blowing. So are you ready to pass on to another question?
Yes.
Okay. I know we've been talking, and you've told me about people, actually somewhat known people, that tried to discredit you and do things to destabilize you, and saying that they were trying to help you, but really they weren't. And from what I understand, these people are just put out there exposing what the organization they are a part of is really about, so people will come to them, and then it makes it easier, especially a girl in your case, and when you tell the story, they'll understand, a girl that's looking for people that are actually seem like they could really help them. And the fact of the matter is, it's like CPS, Child Protective Services. They just got caught being involved in the child sex trade, and basically, the kids in this situation have no place to go after this torment and being traded, and they put them right back in Child Protective Services. The very
who are now known as a legal child trafficking organization. Absolutely.
Yeah. So could you elaborate on your experiences and what you know and about CPS and the people that you've dealt with, that you came to a point of trusting them, and then you clearly saw what they were trying to do is they were trying to pull you back into the occult, and luckily you're very smart and very intelligent, and you were able to see through what they were doing.
Well, through Tamara Keller, who lived in the Palm Beach gated community, I can't remember, Thunderbird. She lived in a Thunderbird, the gated Palm Beach community in Palm Springs, in Palm Springs, California. Tamara Keller was a friend of mine and posed as an enlightened person. I met her through a CIA shadow who went by the name Karib Noel Rodriguez. It turns out that Noel Rodriguez also used maybe 5 different names. The only way to pinpoint him for certain is that he was partners with Don O'Melveny in the Don O'Melveny Art Galleries on Wilshire in Los Angeles, California. Wilshire and Beverly Hills. Noel Rodriguez and Don O'Melveny were very involved in the human sex trafficking, human slave trade, very much involved with the CIA. This is how I met Tamara Keller, and while I thought she was just, an enlightened sort of hippie chick, turns out that she was a CIA shadow, and I, through her, met Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels, another CIA shadow, and fake. She may have a high school diploma. I became involved with Tamara as a friend and came to realize, when I needed help, when I started to realize what was going on and turn to her for help, I came to realize over time what she was. Tamara Keller, and that is a very long story. And probably one worth telling before I get into how she introduced me to Ted Gunderson and then on to Senator John DeCamp.
Ted Gunderson, the very same Ted Gunderson that acts like he is trying to expose child sex trafficking and the CIA occult. That Ted Gunderson? Okay.
Yes, FBI Chief Ted Gunderson.
Okay.
Supposedly now deceased. I put enough together and I had regained enough memory because memory loss is a big part of how they control us. I got in my car and I drove from Beverly Hills to Nevada City, California, where Tamara Keller was with Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels and a woman named Jenny Richards, also in the CIA. Jenny Richards is involved with Pat's group in Africa. They're involved in human trafficking. When I got to Auburn, California, I'd been on the road since early that morning. It was now dark, pitch black dark. Auburn, California is hills and mountains. It's remote. I took a wrong turn and wound up going up into the mountains, and it was so dark you couldn't see anything. A huge truck with a trailer behind me had been playing this cat and mouse game with me for, according to witnesses, 2 or 3 miles. As the trail was leading further and further up the mountain, it was dark, I couldn't see, I was scared. I had seen a few road signs that created flashes of memory of very bad experiences in that area from many years before. And I will say that area is strongly involved with the occult. There are a lot of occultists in that area, which is why Tamara Keller, Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels, and Jenny Richards reside in that area. Um, the truck sped up, and then the car in front of me slowed down, and they boxed me in, and then this huge truck came along and smashed into my Mustang, and the driver's side, my side of the car, was smashed into the divider. But ironically, I should have been killed. My side of the car, the driver's side, was completely smashed in, and yet when it was all over, I came to realize that I was just sitting in the middle of the car and I was fine. I couldn't even get out on that. I had to go to the passenger side to get out. So it was a setup. They ran a box on me. They boxed me in from behind and in front, and then smashed into me. And my car wound up going over the cliff, but not all the way down it. There was, of course, several cars involved in the pileup. Oh my God, about 10 cop cars showed up. It was crazy. There was like a sea of police there. And a police chief in Auburn, California. This was in 1996, I believe. Mm-hmm. I had no valid driver's license, and I had no insurance. And yet they let me go. No problem. I said, I can't find it. Oh, here's my old insurance. It was expired, and they just let me go. I had just been involved in a car, I think 4 cars in a pileup, and it looked like the kind of accident where everybody died. And even though the only thing they could find on me was a driver's license that had expired years ago and had been red flagged and was really just part of a fake identity Laurel Aston, Hollywood producer, provided to me by the CIA as my last and final cover in the CIA. And they let me go because obviously they got a phone call and were told to. So that was how I was trying to get to Tamara Keller in Nevada City, California, for help. And I believe that she resided there with a family that were all under mind control. There was a big house with little cabins, and everyone that came to stay there was a mind control victim. And as they ran to Tamara Keller for help, they were, basically coming to be reprogrammed. I believe the address was 1066 or something like this, Cement Hill Road, Nevada City, California. Auburn, where the staged accident took place, meant to kill me, was about 15 minutes away. Through Tamara Keller and Jenny Richards and Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels, who is a fake, she's not a doctor, she's a low-level CIA officer, I was put in touch with Ted Gunderson, FBI chief, who was involved in the McMartin preschool trial. He was involved with the Franklin cover-up. He was involved with the Army doctor whose wife and pregnant wife and 2 little girls were murdered.
What, the same Franklin cover-up that included Bush and Clinton and all that administration?
Hollywood producers, billionaires,
yep.
Owner of the Omaha Tribune, Larry King, bankers, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Basically, people like Ted Gunderson, Senator John DeCamp, and former victims like Kathy O'Brien are set up like lightning rods to attract victims that are regaining memory and absolutely terrified out of their minds and desperately seeking help. When these people contact them, they are then, supposedly being routed into safe houses and being taken to safety, and they are made to disappear or reprogrammed. Ted Gunderson tried to get me to go into a witness protection program with a safe house. And so did Jenny Richards. Jenny Richards and Pam McKellar, Dr. Sandra Michaels tried to talk me into, before anybody knew who I was, before I had a chance to try to go to police, who have all been instructed not to take a written report from me or assist me in any way, even in cases of attempted murder. I had an Army Intel CIA op try to murder me a year ago, Ken Spiegelman of 71 Forest Range Road in Katona, New York, and police detectives were instructed not to take a written report. At that point in time, when Tamara Keller, Dr. Sandra Rose Michaels, Jenny Richards were trying to talk me into getting on a plane with Jenny Richards and going to India to a ranch where I could be safe, nobody knew who I was. No one knew anything about me. Police hadn't heard of me yet. And apparently they were saying that Jenny Richards, as an ordained minister, through the United Nations, and the United Nations is corrupt and controlled, through the United Nations, she could achieve a special permission for me as a victim of human trafficking with no legal identity. I was sold at the age of 4 to the U.S. military by my father, Prince Karim Aga Khan, who is heavily involved in human slavery and mind control, and runs the Ismailis, a satanic cult. David Rockefeller, through U.S. Naval Intel, CIA, was my owner in America. He gave me to Wiley Duke Nichols and Carol Jean Starkey Nichols, and they resided at 10 Linda Drive next door to his personal assistant, Michelle Singer, in Virginia. I had fake documentation, like Obama. I was born in Kenya, like Obama, and my birth certificate, everything they had for me was a complete fake. So I'm an undocumented person. Every passport, birth certificate I've ever had is a complete fake, fabricated by the U.S. government, military, CIA. So even though I have no passport, driver's license, birth certificate, nothing, she was going to put me on a plane to India and take me to a ranch where I could be safe. Well, had I been stupid enough to go for that, that would have been the last anybody ever heard from me. Ted Gunderson tried to get me to do the same. Senator John DeCamp and Ted Gunderson are nothing. Senator John DeCamp was Army Intel CIA before he, quote, retired from the Army and became an attorney. Well, he's CIA. And they were double agents used to investigate these horrific cases of mass child trafficking, child sex slavery, drug running, use of disposable child soldiers and assassins in the U.S. military in Omaha, Nebraska. A lot of it was happening through Boys Town, USA, and Catholic orphanages. I would also like to say that Omaha, Nebraska is one of the best kept secrets in the United States of America. One of my handlers, Stephanie Pritchard, who used the name Stephanie Kelly, married into an occult family when she married Derek Wild. His mother is Cheryl Wild, and I believe his father is Steve Wild. They live in Omaha, Nebraska, and Cheryl and Steve were heavily involved with Boys Town, USA. They were occultists. I attended Stephanie's wedding to Derek Wild in August 11th, 2002 in Omaha, Nebraska. The church was a front for a satanic cult. It was the who's who of Omaha, Nebraska. Tara Dawn Holland, former Miss America, and her husband, a Nebraska state senator, were members of the church, and Tara Dawn Holland and her husband were not only present at the wedding, Tara Dawn Holland sang at the wedding. I have memory of what took place while I was in Omaha, satanic rituals, and I can say with absolute certainty that the church is a front for satanic activity. And these people were all involved with Boys Town, USA. And this is how the U.S. military, the occultists running these programs, black ops programs in the U.S. military, procure these children through orphanages, Boys Town, USA, foster care, CPS, vulnerable at-risk children. And FBI Chief Ted Gunderson and Senator John DeCamp were double agents used to basically muck it up. During the course of their investigation, they thoroughly destroy any evidence, terrify any witnesses, and basically what they did as, quote, investigators and prosecutors was terrify the children into recanting testimony and seeing to it that all the high-level perpetrators skated off scot-free, like George Bush, Larry King, et cetera, et cetera. 97 children talked about the Omaha police chief. One of them was a child who had been raped and impregnated with a rape baby at 13, Alicia Owens. I believe wholeheartedly that her parents were involved in this cult. For starters, when their 13-year-old child had been raped, rather than take her to a doctor to get an abortion, they forced her to have the rape baby. And the rape baby is still in their possession. Although the other children were terrified during the course of the investigation by Ted Gunderson and Senator John DeCamp and scared into recanting their testimony, a few of them didn't. Alicia Owens refused to recant. And why? This girl was wrong. She was raped and forced to have a rape baby at the age of 13. She was wronged, and she was not going to recant no matter what. She was made to suffer greatly, and within a couple of weeks of her 18th birthday, she was picked up and forced to testify again. Only this time, it was as an adult, and they then told her, if you don't recant, we're going to try you for perjury. She refused to recant. They tried her right after her 18th birthday as an adult for perjury and sentenced her to 27 years. The longest prison term ever given for perjury to an 18-year-old. She was kept in solitary confinement, and no one has been allowed to see her. No women's rights groups, no human rights groups, no clergy. So there's no way of determining what condition she's in this, so-called solitary confinement. While she named the police chief as her rapist and says that the rape baby was his, no DNA test was ever run. The female DA missed deadlines with Alicia Owens' case. She was she was supposed to be protecting Alicia Owens. She failed to protect her. She screwed her case up royally. She missed deadlines, failed to introduce evidence, and it was later discovered, after Alicia Owens was thrown in jail for perjury, that this female district attorney was lovers with one of the Italian Mafia guys involved in this child sex slave ring. They tried to get a retrial for Alicia Owens, and yet that didn't work either. So it's a ring of highly sophisticated, wealthy, so-called professionals involved in not only trafficking these children, but it's a racket. It's a network. And there's no way out for these kids because police chiefs, district attorneys, judges, dirty social workers in child protective services, foster care, all of the so-called anti-trafficking groups, GEMS, EXPAT, run by Carol Smolinski. It's an international organization. Safe Horizons, headed up by Fiona Nathan. Sanctuary for Families with Shauna Lim. All of these organizations are funded by the State Department, and their head social workers are all government agents. They will lie, they will lose evidence, they will alter paperwork, and they will repeatedly, and keep in mind, I have personally dealt with every one of these people. They're going to see to it that the children who are of interest to the U.S. military, who are involved in these satanic pedophile networks are always rerouted back into the hands of sons. The only children that ever get their escape, that only ever get their freedom and escape these networks, are children who are of no interest. And even then, these girls who are in these programs, like at GEMS in New York City, are subjected to mind control experiments, experimental drugs. They're told that they have certain medical conditions they don't have in order to conduct experimental surgeries. And the babies that they have born of sex slavery are of great interest to the U.S. military.
Wow. One thing I would like to add that I really think it's important that our listeners understand is these people, what they do as Satanists and Luciferians, because there is a difference, what they do when they are raping these children and women, and why they're so bent on rape, is because they are reenacting the story of the Nephilim. Now, the story of the Nephilim is when Lucifer went against God and took other angels and went against God, and what did they do? They did what God forbid them to do, and that was to have any kind of intercourse, sexual relations with the women of earth. So Lucifer took his minions, the fallen, and started raping the women of earth, and then they gave birth to the Nephilim, the rape babies. And these Nephilim were giants, and they brought war and pestilence onto earth. Now, if you know about Mr. Bush Sr., his skull and bones Freemason name is Magog, bringer of war, pain, and pestilence. This is what the Nephilim brought to earth when they came down to earth and started raping the women and young girls. And so this society is carrying on this tradition. And the reason why they're so bent on rape babies is because they don't want babies out of love. They want babies forced out of hate, deceit, and witchcraft and Satanism, because that way a demon can inherit the soul.
That's the body and soul. That's correct. The idea of, to be honest, this whole Catholic notion of birth control being a sin, and trying to talk people out of abortion, even in cases of child molestation and rape, is all about providing a body for a demon. It's about playing on people's sentiments and brainwashing them into believing that abortion in the case of rape is murdering an innocent baby, when in fact it is, first of all, what is done to an innocent girl in the process of rape and being forced to carry a rape baby. It should be clear that this is demonology.
Her mind is shattered.
Her mind is shattered. Her soul is shattered. She'll never be the same again. And the thing created in rape is part of a formula in satanic ritual abuse demonology. It is not an innocent baby. It looks like that to the average person and to someone who is not spiritually enlightened. Certainly all Chinese masters and those who study Chinese medicine know very well about demonology, and they know better. It looks like it may look like a tiny innocent baby to some people, but it will absolutely grow into serving the cult and serving the one whose image it was created in, and that is Lucifer or Satan.
Yeah, because God is love, and any child that is not created out of love is honestly not of God, because God is love. And it's as simple as that, and people don't really understand and clue into how simple everything really is, but how intricate these Luciferians take it, and how literally they take it and what they do.
Right. That's right.
So,
well, I would like to add also, I mean, in the course of trying to seek help, I was volunteering at Social Peace Animal Rescue and met a Carmen Grion, who posed as an attorney. It turns out she hadn't actually been licensed as an attorney in 15 years. She is now under police investigation and was revealed by them to be part of the CIA's child trafficking cartel. and she was paid to, like Ted Gunderson and Senator John DeCamp with the Franklin cover-up. Carmen Guion destroyed my case, filed right at the deadline. She says a day before the deadline. The other side says she filed the day after the deadline. Judge Stanley Green ruled that she just made the deadline. She lost crucial evidence and admitted it in the court.
So she was posing as your lawyer?
Well, she was my lawyer, but she was working for the other side. She was a setup.
Okay.
She is involved with the CIA's child trafficking cartel. She was my handler, and that in the course of working on the case, which was a $250 million, 2 lawsuits against doctors working for the CIA, paid to medically torture and mutilate me, and finally try to kill me to shut me up. It was Laurel Aston versus Dr. William B. Rosenblatt and Dr. Emil Karen. And a second lawsuit, Laurel Aston versus Unimed, Dr. Babubian, Dr. Emil Karen, and Dr. Billa.
So they mutilated your face and your body?
That is correct, in an effort to, it's Dr. Jose Delgado's psychosurgery program, physical, surgical mutilation to detour people from deviating from the satanic norm. So if you deviate from the norm, if you try to expose the truth, if you try to break free of one of these cults, this is your punishment. Carmen Guion admitted in the Supreme Court, first of all, she tripped herself up, and when she got caught in some lies, she tried to change her story. She admitted to losing the crucial evidence. There were police detectives already conducting an official police investigation in the audience, and they were able to report clearly that my Supreme Court documents were altered as this was all cut out. The court reporters, one of them was Joanna Ortiz, and then the other one was Lisa someone, I'll have to get her name, altered my court documents. I mean, cut them up, altered, cut out whole passages, altered others, made words up. Carmen Guion used the investigation to have contact with me and was attempting to reprogram me. She attempted to mess up every job. Anytime anybody tried to come into my life to actually help me, that was her role. So Carmen Guion was like Ted Gunderson and Senator John DeCamp. They put another girl on me at this time named Esther Franco, the daughter of Enrique Ochoa, the Freemason. And again, she posed as a friend, but her role was to basically destroy everything in my life. And she stole every penny I had. She created nothing but problems for me. She was right there to try and she was right there in my life, living in my apartment and not paying rent. So that she was immediately aware of anybody coming into my life that may want to help me. Her father, Enrique Ochoa, claimed to want to take over my case, and he basically destroyed my documents, knowing that I didn't have money, thanks to his daughter stealing every penny I have. He destroyed my documents, knowing that I didn't have the money to request them from the court and have to pay the money to get. And the documents were so expensive; they were all $30, $40 a piece. So I didn't have the money, because his daughter had just wiped me out to request the documents, and I had like 2 weeks to find another attorney. Well, when your attorneys won't release your what documents they did have, and your documents are shredded and destroyed, and the evidence has been lost, it's really hard to get another attorney. Clearly, Enrique Ochoa was paid off. He was a Freemason. He was a setup. And during the course of the investigation, of course, it was uncovered that Enrique Ochoa and his daughter, Esther Franco Ochoa, were involved with child trafficking. The two basically looked for young girls who were pregnant or had just had babies, and they would offer them a free apartment, and they wanted to help them, and these girls were never heard from again. I met Esther when I was working for Dr. Lou in New York City. And there was a young girl there, Christina, who was about 21, with an 18-month-old illegitimate baby. Christina was 5'10". She's pretty. She was thin. Her baby was beautiful and very, very smart. This was the kind of thing that they would look for. So Esther offered, and she had an illegitimate baby and a boyfriend who beat her up. So Esther offered Christina a job with Enrique Ochoa. And every time her boyfriend, Jeffrey, beat her up, Enrique Ochoa and Esther would say, you know, we want to help you. We're going to give you a free apartment, help you get a new identity. You have to get away from this guy so he can't find you. We'll file all the legal paperwork for you. We want to help you. What they were really trying to do was get this girl in a position where she could be made to disappear, and the disappearance was explained. She was pretty. She was an asset. She had an unusually beautiful, unusually smart baby. This is worth big bucks in a satanic child trafficking ring. The police showed up in uniform to Carmen Grion and Enrique Ochoa and Esther Franco and investigated them and basically let them know, we know what you are. We've had our eye on you for a while. They confronted Enrique Ochoa about being a nudist with his daughter, sleeping nude with his daughter. They confronted him about very sexual text messages and so on and so forth, and asked him point blank, are you having sex with your daughter? And let him know what they knew about him. And they asked Esther Franco point blank, do you think sleeping nude with your father is normal? Do you think your behavior is normal? And they let him know, we know what you are. We know what you're involved in. We have our eye on you. And Enrique Ochoa, in fact, had been a part of sending hitmen after me at my building, which was a setup through Carmen Grion. I lived on the 6th floor of 8011 Walton by the Supreme Court. The police have said that everybody on the 6th floor was involved in this, and that it was a setup so that if anything happened, my neighbors, who honestly some of them just appeared insane, like Bernard Richardson and Ariella, my next-door neighbor, who constantly just harassed me and was literally insane. And there were a lot of bizarre things around her. They made sure that the people around me were part of this so that if something was done to me, which something was, there would be no witnesses.
Okay. That's really incredible.
So, yeah, what I was saying, that while I was at 811 Walton, Enrique Ochoa sent gunmen to the building on Christmas Eve about 2 years ago, and police responded, but apparently the gunman was able to slip out of the building somehow. I don't know how. I mean, maybe he even knew somebody in the building, or maybe he just found an exit. But that's when they decided they had to go pay Enrique Ochoa a visit, because that's very serious.
Well, you never know. I mean, they could have had an underground facility. I mean, usually the way, from what I've come to understand, is these occultists, they buy up houses in neighborhoods. A lot of the times, if they have basements, or you know, they even dig underground facilities and connect them to like one big room.
Right.
So they can just disappear from their home if something goes down, and it's very much the same way with any kind of complex that they own. Because if you study the Nazis and the Nazi real society, it is all about underground tunneling networks and occultism.
That's correct. Well, and as we discussed in our last interview, I was railroaded into an occult neighborhood. The owner I rent an apartment from that is part of a large home in Queens, and the owner's phone number is 666. As you look at the homes in the area that are for sale, the real estates and the companies and realtors have the number 666 in their cell phone, or like with Easy Realty, the number 666 is in the real estate company's number. So, and I've had a lot of bizarre activity in this area. Like you and I, before this phone conversation, were talking about some of the strange people that had come up to speak to me this morning while I was walking my dog.
Yeah, he was talking to you about me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So I've been railroaded into an occult area. Again, so that there are no witnesses. I'm controlled. Whatever's done, they're going to say whatever they want them to say. And the owner of the house is clearly a part of it.
Yeah, I told you what happened to me, and when we had made plans to do the recording yesterday, but we had to do it today, and it was clearly they were using people around me to make situations where we couldn't do this.
That's right.
But let's move on to the next question. Could you explain to me, or explain to our listeners, about the sex trap, how they lure women through newspaper ads and through, like TV communications, fake newspaper ads, fake newspaper articles.
Sure.
And just elaborate on that. The sex traps and what they do to women and how they lure women in.
When I was, let's start. When I was a teenager in New York City, there was a woman named Noreen Perot who lived on somewhere like around East 52nd, between 1st and 2nd. Noreen Perot posed as a photographer, and she ran an ad in Backstage magazine for, 20 years, seeking for girls who wanted headshots for modeling. And basically, when I, as a teen model, contacted her to get headshots, she offered to do my portfolio for free. She said she thought that that she, in exchange for allowing me to have my pictures in her portfolio, and she was clearly setting the stage. She asked questions that were highly inappropriate to ask somebody who was just inquiring about headshots. Questions like, where's your family? Are you close to them? Who are you staying with? Are you American? Do you work legally? What Noreen Perot was really doing was, the ad was to troll for young girls to determine, okay, first of all, as a photographer doing headshots for models, the girl that is going to respond to that is going to typically be tall and beautiful, or very attractive. From there, she can ask the right questions to find out, does this girl have any type of support system? Is she from another country? Is she illegal? How easy is it to make her disappear? Noreen Perot was actually taking girls through this ad into sex slavery, trafficking, and a lot of these girls were lured into prostitution in New York City and the Hamptons. Noreen Perot lived out in the Hamptons with a man, William Swan, who was a descendant of Thomas Jefferson. So it's, the blue bloods, old money, old New York money. So she was very connected to wealthy people, and a lot of these young girls were brought into prostitution this way, willingly, and others were actually made to disappear. When I got to Hollywood, I was working at, we'll start with Chasen's and then move on to the Jacksons. While at Chasen's, Don Grunow was involved with the fashion shows that we produced. That he was later fired, and I took over the fashion and music. But when I got there, Don Grunow was doing fashion shows, and it was basically luring gorgeous young girls from all over the world who had come to Hollywood to become movie stars and models, hoping to marry, the men that they were dreaming about. And I want to say also a lot of wounded young girls who didn't have love and support, who were abused and wanted to become somebody, to prove to all the people who had hurt them so badly. A lot of these girls are teenagers, runaways, to prove to the people who had rejected them that they were worthy. And it's tragic, it's heartbreaking. this is exactly what they were looking for. Gorgeous young girls, wounded from abusive backgrounds, without the support system, who could easily be made to disappear. Don Bruno was involved with people like the Saudi royal family, who would come to Chasen, a man who called himself Prince Faisal al-Janeh, Barry Gordon, Don Tanner, and a number of people in the CIA, Jack Valente, who was the president of the Motion Picture Association, a former CIA, well, still working for the CIA, but went from being a CIA head to president of the California Motion Picture Association. So in this way, they trolled for vulnerable young girls that could be made to disappear. And in fact, I do remember a number of these girls supposedly going to London or going on a trip with Prince Faisal, Prince Nawaf, and never coming back. And no one ever heard from them again. And these girls were sold into sex slavery.
Yeah, you were telling me, what was it, about the Playboy Mansion?
Oh, and the Playboy Mansion. A lot of those girls are mind-controlled sex slaves that have been bred from other abducted females. Like these girls that are sold into sex slavery, they will, the really gorgeous ones, they'll use as sex slaves to a certain age, and then they'll start giving them fertility drugs and breeding them, so that you get these gorgeous babies who are undocumented. So a lot of the Playboy bunnies are mind-controlled sex slaves from birth. Some of them are just from abusive backgrounds. They didn't have the family support, and they were lured into prostitution, but subjected to brainwashing. All of the Playboy bunnies living at Hugh Hefner's are under mind control, and they are sex slaves. A lot of these girls are then used as a front to spy, to, put them with married men and videotape it, and then control that man. So if he's a senator or a congressman, or someone in the United Nations, a policymaker, billionaire, millionaire, he's worth blackmailing. And there are other fronts like Model Quality, which started in Beverly Hills with Harrison Gray and Craig Donaldson. This is a CIA front for putting sex slaves with rich, powerful men. There was a brothel on 79th Street that was busted roughly a year and a half ago. Dr. William B. Rosenblatt was involved with that, was doing surgery on the sex slaves there, and it was the world's elite that went to this brothel. This was East 79th Street in New York City. Dr. William B. Rosenblatt's home and private clinic were within blocks of this brothel. He had a tie to it as doing the plastic surgery on these girls. And basically the brothel was used to put gorgeous women with the world's leaders and videotape it and then blackmail the heck out of these guys. Money, control his vote, control his policy, control his business.
So, and you were also telling me about Barry Gordon and the Michael Jackson scam and how he made all that money.
Right. They used Michael Jackson's name. I mean, Michael Jackson bought them. He was a victim. He was a victim of mind control slavery from birth. The people around him, like Uncle Norby Walters was CIA. He was a handler. So they really just used Michael's name. Michael was completely innocent. He was a very beautiful soul. Everything about him was a lie to try and control him and destroy him for fighting. Joe Jackson, however, was another story. Joe sexually abused all his boys and all his girls. He is a handler. He's completely uneducated. I think he's got a second-grade education. He's not a smart guy, but he got involved with Freemasonry and satanic ritual abuse.
Yeah,
so
he had to because he was the Jackson's manager, and anybody knows if you get to that level to be in the music business, you have to be a Freemason in the Illuminati. So that's how Joe got in. Not that he was smart, he just managed the most talented group in the world.
That's right. And sexually abused all of them as part of keeping them under. Joe Jackson, Barry Gordon, Frank Harris, Naval Intel CIA, Ed Jones, who his front was owning a club downtown Los Angeles. He's CIA. These guys were running talent contests. And these talent contests were basically used to look for beautiful, pretty, or even just attractive girls that, maybe they had the right height and body type, and they could be given plastic surgery, but the main thing was that they came from abusive backgrounds and could be made to disappear easily, and through their abusive background, it lends itself to brainwashing and mind control. So these talent contests were used to troll for young girls that could be brought into sex slavery, made to disappear, or turned into prostitutes and then subjected to hardcore brainwashing and mind control.
Wow. That is just mind-blowing. Again, okay, let's move on to some more questions. How about telling our listeners a little bit about CIA makeup, plastic surgeries, body doubles, clones, all the wonderful stuff that people forget the CIA do, but they show it in movies all the time. And not to mention Hollywood and all the special effects and makeup companies and what they're really used for.
Yeah. Well, cloning is very real. A lot of it takes place.
And I just would like to add, Hitler perfected cloning in his day and brought that to the United States. So people can't really fathom how far cloning has actually gone today. But go ahead, sorry to disrupt you.
No, you're absolutely right. They can't, because they certainly don't report it. And the research is taking place at places like Tinkerfield Air Force Base and CIA front programs like Facing Forward in Los Angeles. Dr. Bradley, Dr. Henry Kawamoto, Dr. Dene Montague King, who was actually a high school dropout, and I don't know, I think he may have achieved an equivalency later. He went into the Army in the Black Ops program when he got into trouble. I mean, he was involved in murder and prostitution.
Well, he
went into the Army, and they gave him this fake name, Dr. Dene Montague King, but he maybe has a high school education.
Well, Operation Paperclip, is the base in San Antonio, NASA, where, all the Nazis brought all that technology here to the United States. So go on.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and they were dispersed through the U.S. military with new faces and identities, and their descendants, such as the woman who posed as my biological mother, Carol Jean Starkey Nichols, are platinum blonde-haired, blue-eyed descendants of these German Nazis carrying out this satanic, Luciferian, occult, racist program. So people like Dr. Dene Montague King, again, a complete fake, Dr. Henry Kawamoto, Dr. Bradley, sit on the board of Facing Forward, which has been around for like 30 years, and yet there's absolutely no records kept there, which is highly illegal. And obviously there's something going on. And what Facing Forward is a front for horrific human experimentation and genealogy experiments being done by these occult groups. All of these people are occultists. They're all Luciferians or Satanists. They're all involved in human slavery and human experimentation. And the little children brought into this program, and some of them are created in this program, and it's a front for creating monsters and then just doing horrific experiments on these poor little babies. Quote, success stories are just a front to try and get funding, and of course it is a front for cloning and human experimentation, horrific experiments.
Wow. And body doubles and the Hollywood companies. I know I've spoken to you in the past, and you named a few that especially do like the
absolutely.
makeup.
no question. Like this, there's a company, Ron somebody provides celebrity doubles. Body doubles are used. I mean, they'll search the world over and even they'll search the world over for people who look like someone important and then give them extensive plastic surgery to ensure that they really look like that person. And that's also what people like Dr. William B. Rosenblatt are used for, Dr. Neil Handel, Dr. Pam Marabati, Dr. Simon Orion. These people are used for Dr. Jose Delgado's psychosurgery program of mutilation, but they're also used for surgeries on, and by the way, some of these people are abducted and subjected to brainwashing and given plastic surgery just because they looked a hell of a lot like somebody important and could pass as made a good double. This is very real. I've seen Barry Gordon participating in these things. I know all of the people I just named, and I can tell you what they do. I know that I myself have a number of doubles. We talked about that last time. Mm-hmm. And I mean, starting in my childhood, when other people, other military mothers who were not part of this program would see me with Carol, and when she would call me Lori, they would just flip completely out. Say, no, this is not Lori. In Hollywood, I had actually been out of the country, and one of my body doubles was in Hollywood as Laurel Aston, making big deals in my name while I was out of the country. So and that was also a front. They wanted someone to believe that I was operating in Hollywood while I was not even in the country. These are some of the uses of body doubles. It destroys police investigations, destroys timelines, and can be very, very hard. It can literally destroy an investigation.
Yeah, and they also use doubles for, I would like to point this out, that when they're programming a child, that child can be gone for weeks and months at a time.
That's right.
So when they go through the programming, they need a double to stand in as that child if they're actually trying to put up a front as they're a so-called everyday family. And
that's right. That's right, because I was also going to school. I was in America, briefly with the Nichols, who were a minor cover, mm-hmm. but I was also going to the Evangelical School for Children in CAIR, Lebanon. Again, I wasn't there all the time. I was also in Russia. So you can bet that when I was not in Russia, when I was not Aisha in the Evangelical School for Children in CAIR, Lebanon, there was a body double in there. Why? Because later I would be used as a teenager to infiltrate groups as a Lebanese-born Christian, or I think Aisha, of course, was Muslim, but going to a Christian school, but nevertheless, I could be used as a Lebanese-born Lebanese girl with trust, credibility, and verifiable birth certificate and school records to infiltrate certain groups mm-hmm. that were fighting these occult groups taking over their country.
Yeah, and another thing that I'd like to point out with body doubles is Lauren, Lauren DiCarlo. She's an agent that I met, and I know she has body doubles because she's an MI5 and she's also a Hollywood producer. And one of the things is she is always away going to do things. But there needs to be someone still in Hollywood to maintain the image that she's there and doing business. And she spends most of her time on assignment.
That's right.
And also, with the body doubles, it makes it appropriate and sensible for the, well, I don't want to say appropriate, but sensible for the CIA to have body doubles in case they do lose control of one of their agents or whatever, and they want to kill that person. And it just makes it easier for the body double to maintain the image that they're, the identity that they're still alive, when in actuality that they're not.
That's right. That's right. If one of them figures out, hey, I've been lied to, this is just evil beyond anything I'm willing to be involved with, and they're all subjected to brainwashing. So some of them, I mean, it's rare, but it has happened that they found God and had a change of heart, and in which case, yeah, they would be killed, and a body double will maintain their position, whatever that position was. It can be a very high position.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's move on to another question. In the last video that we did, and I just wanted you to elaborate more on this because I found it so like mind-blowing, but it made so much sense. The comic book trade.
Oh yeah.
And you know how they use comic books and fronts, and I actually know that the comic book store in downtown Mendocino is exactly what you said it is. I mean, Quentin Tarantino has a house in Mendocino. Russell Simmons even has a house in Mendocino. A lot of Hollywood people. Woody Harrelson has a house in Mendocino overlooking the Mendocino light tower. It's the same light tower that used to be in the Channel 2 commercial logo beacon whenever they used to use that. That's Mendocino, and it's a very heavily CIA Black Ops area.
And everyone you named are involved with the CIA. So, yeah.
Wow. So could you elaborate on the comic book trade? Because I saw some things firsthand when I was with a handler, and he took me up to Mendocino to continue to see if I remembered my childhood and stuff like that, so they could reinforce some of my mind control. But I'm not going to get into that. We're about you today. So just elaborate on the comic book trade.
Okay. One of my handlers, I was rented by the U.S. military to a handler in the Jewish Mafia involved with the comic book trade. Of course, you know, when you say Jewish Mafia, these people are occultists with Jewish last names.
Kabbalists.
They're occultists with Jewish last names who, that's as far as it goes. There's nothing Jewish about them.
Well, let me disrupt you first. The person specifically that I had problems with as a child, and I lived next door to him, Bruce, and actually a big man in Hollywood, he started the Church of Kabbalah, and he has a home in Mendocino, and in Mendocino there is a Bushwalker Street, and on Bushwalker Street there is the downtown Mendocino jail, and across the street from Bushwalker Street is a cemetery. That's where they put people that don't go their way in Mendocino. But go ahead, what you were saying, sorry to interrupt you.
So Steve Borak was in the Jewish Mafia, and he was big in the comic book industry. He came to be my handler. Apparently I had been rented to the Jewish Mafia by the military in my, so-called personal life. So when I was on ice, when the military didn't need me for an assignment for about a 2.5 year period, anytime I was in America and not on military assignment, they were making a fortune on me by renting me to the Jewish Mafia, who rented me to, whoever as a mind-controlled assassin. Of course, Steve Borak raped me under mind control as my handler. Sexual abuse and rape is part of keeping your slave under. I was drugged, tortured, electrocuted. There was a great deal of abuse with my renting to the Jewish Mafia through Steve Borak. So I was subjected to radiation to erase my memory so that I couldn't report back to the U.S. military under interrogation, with codes and
all
the
this,
drugs that they use.
All this started with
the truth.
All this starts with a comic book and purchasing.
That's right. Well, yeah, I'm just getting into who he is and how it works. So in order to cover their abuse, they subjected me to radiation at a hospital in the Bronx to make sure that I couldn't report back, the abuse and the sex abuse I suffered while being rented to the Jewish Mafia, because that's not part of the contract. Yes, it starts with the comic books. The comic books, are nothing more than a front. they're a deed for leasing or purchasing a human being, a child, a sex slave. The comic books, Steve dealt with high-end comic books. So the comic books that you bought for $500,000, you were buying a drop-dead gorgeous sex slave. If you bought her, you could marry her, you could use her for a while, pass her around to your friends, breed her, she was yours. If you wanted to breed rape babies with her, that's it, that's your property. A number of Hollywood celebrities and all kinds of people are involved in, quote, buying these comic books. Charlie Sheen was a big client of Steve Borak. So the comic book is nothing more than a deed for buying a sex slave or a mind-controlled assassin, leasing it, renting it. They're bought, sold, and traded. And it's become so, quote, legitimized that they were literally buying, selling, and trading comic books at places like Tiffany's. And I can remember standing on stage at one of these auctions, I think it was actually Christie's, holding a comic book that was being basically rented for $2.3 million. First of all, that alone should set warning bells off to people. An old comic book being sold for $2.3 million. Does this make any sense to anybody? Comic books aren't even that old. I mean, when did they start? Back in the 30s or 40s? And one of these books is going to go for $2.3 million? That alone should not make sense to anybody. So when I was standing on stage at Christie's, holding one of Steve Borak's comics being sold for like $2.3 million, or rented, I was actually holding my certificate. And immediately following this auction, and I do mean immediately following this auction, I was on a plane to Beverly Hills. I had been sold.
Wow.
So the comic book industry is the comic is a lease or a deed to a human being. All these comic book stores, they're all in on it. There's a grading system that Steve Borak is known to have perfected, the third-party grading system, for grading the value of a human being in the form of buying, through this grading system of comic books. You grade the comic book, and in the comic book, you read our little things that you're looking for, codes in the comic that allow you to determine the temperament, health, disposition, and value of the slave you're buying. I was onto it at a certain point, right before Steve Borak sold me at this auction at Christie's. And I gathered up a bunch of his comics, and I went around to different comic book stores in Manhattan, like in Midtown, in the 50s. I went to comic book stores all over Manhattan. And basically I got the same reaction at all of them. I took the plastic sleeve off the comic, and it was just a comic book. And yet, somehow they looked at me with shock and horror, and they said, "These are Steve Borak's books. How'd you get these books?" I said, "Oh, well, he gave them to me to sell." No, I'm not interested in these books. And they immediately disappeared into the back. The reaction was horror. It was as if I walked into the comic book store and put a dead body on their counter and said, "I'd like to sell this." Steve Borak was supposedly at work. Steve Borak's front was Doral Refining Company. He was basically stealing from Doral. It was gold refining. That was also Jewish Mafia. He was stealing from his company. He was supposed to be at Doral Refining that day, and came home in the middle of the workday, kicked the door open of the house where I was being kept, 48 Wood Road in Great Neck, New York. And he kicked that door open and started screaming at me, "What the fuck are you doing? And I got a call at work today, what are you doing trying to sell my books?" And I said, I wasn't trying to sell your books. I was investigating what the hell is going on with these books. What are these books a front for, Steve? And Steve Brock said, it's none of your business. So he didn't even try to lie at that point. Of course, he used codes on me to bring me under control. I was taken to a hospital in the Bronx. I found the actual clinic. I had a patient that was sent from Lincoln to Calvary who was dying, Miguel Tabachi. And while looking for Miguel Tabachi, I found the clinic where I had been taken by Steve Brock for radiation to erase my memory. So there was abuse. I mean, there are rules, especially when you're dealing with a military slave, and I am the daughter of Prince Karim Aga Khan. I am a princess. There are rules around me. However, you know, when you're talking about mind control and being able to, you know, erase somebody's memory with a flip of a switch, why would you think that Satanists, criminals, would follow these rules? They don't. So for all these high-level occultists and royalties who sell their children and rent their children, to think that anybody is going to follow rules around them is ludicrous. I suffered a great deal of horrific sexual abuse at the hands of Steve Borak, and he made extra money off me, not only, you know, as an assassin, but allowing billionaires to rent me and brag to their friends, I fucked death. In order to keep this from being detected, they subjected me to radiation and mind control to erase my memory, so that, you know, even through the military techniques, they would not be able to pull the truth out. This is what the comic book industry is really all about. No one is paying $5 million or $2.3 million for a comic book. They're buying, selling, renting, and trading human beings.
Wow.
I would also add that some honest police have told me that they've investigated this and that they believe that this is true. And it's just so sophisticated and so protected that it's hard to bring down.
Wow. That's incredible. Okay, the next question is about the ritual, part of a ritual that they did to you. I know you were also explaining to me this is actually what they did to the second Muhammad, because what most people don't really know is the reason why Muhammad, the second one, forbid pictures of him being shown is because the first one was a Nuwabian Moor and the second Muhammad was a Saudi. But the question I'm about to ask you is, it's documented and passed down that he went through this same ritual, and some people thought it was holy, and you experienced the same thing. It's called a magic operation. And one thing I would like to add is the reason why the second Muhammad forbid people of seeing a picture of him, because there was two. But anyway, just elaborate to the listeners about the magic operation, and just why they do it, how they do it, how they control your mind with it, and just how mind-shattering and truthfully demonic it really is, and it's just another part of mind control.
That's right. Well, all Muslims believe that the magic surgery done on Muhammad as a 6-year-old child was a sign of his divinity. I would like to say that clearly he was a special child, he was a chosen child, and he was of goodness. He served the light of God. If he didn't, there was no reason to abuse him with satanic ritual abuse and subject him to mind control. Clearly the dark side and Satan felt that my great-grandfather and the Prophet Muhammad is my great-grandfather. Prince Karim Aga Khan is a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad, and I am my father's daughter. This is we're talking about my great grandfather.
Yeah.
I believe he was chosen. I believe he was good. Yeah, I want to make that very clear.
Yeah. And so was the first Muhammad. That was a Nuwabian Moor, which I am descended from. But go ahead.
The magic surgery that all Muslims point to as a symbol of his divinity was actually satanic ritual abuse. It is legend, and it's in the Quran, that angels opened Muhammad's chest as a small child, took out his heart, and washed it with snow. They said this was, of course, divine, and this was for protection. And I came out, and I told, years ago, when I first escaped, I made it to an Imam Siraj Wahaj at Masjid al-Taqwa. And I said, no, this is not divine. You don't understand. They did the same thing to me at the same age. I was 5 and a half, 6 years old. And I was living with the Nichols in Virginia, Wiley Duke Nichols and Carol Jean Starkey Nichols. And they made me believe that they had conducted this magic surgery on me, in which my chest was cut open and my heart was taken out and washed with snow. I was terrified. I can remember for days afterwards, I would not undress. I refused to bathe. Carol was trying to get me to bathe, but I was terrified. I couldn't bear the idea of taking my little top off because I was terrified of seeing like this huge gash and stitches in my chest, and I couldn't even look. And when she finally insisted that I take a bath, I remember just shaking all over and crying, and I was amazed when I took my shirt off to take a bath to see that there was no scar. There was no incision, there were no stitches. And Carol, who was a witch in the Freemasons, was saying, to me in this evil voice, are you surprised that you don't have a scar there? And I just remember being, God, so relieved. I was terrified at what I was going to see there. And so this fake magic surgery that was done on me was nothing more than satanic ritual abuse. And it's done on children who are chosen in these cults as chosen children to be heavily mind controlled. Basically, children they feel are a threat, children that are of the light of God, are subjected to this. And, many children are subjected to it. Different magic surgeries are done with different children. The form that you can read about in books everywhere is that they tell little children that they've cut their chest open with this magic surgery and placed a bomb or explosive device in their heart. And if they ever tell the truth, they'll blow their heart out.
Yeah.
So, this has been verified by doctors who have written about satanic ritual abuse, occultism, and U.S. military mind control. So clearly, once you establish that was a magic surgery, which is a stage in satanic ritual abuse, that I am the descendant of Prophet Muhammad through my father, Prince Karim Aga Khan, you then have to determine that he was subjected to satanic ritual abuse, therefore he was brainwashed and mind controlled. I believe that he was seen as a threat, and in order to keep him from fulfilling what he would have fulfilled as one of these God-chosen children, this was Satan's way of trying to destroy these children with mind control. And also, it through mind control, just as I have been used, unfortunately, by these cults, it allows chosen people to be used and abused by satanic cults, which does not in any way, shape, or form suggest that they are not of God. It clearly shows that the devil felt very threatened by them, by their goodness.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I wanted to ask this question because you had shared a story with me about another girl that had had military training and how they were using these group of people as a circle, perpetuated circle to just keep them having nothing. The question is, how is the CIA, CARTEL, Freemasons, and all these people, how are they using people on welfare, people in poverty, and people that are actually just don't understand what's actually going on, and how they actually keep control of even the people that have gone through severe mind control, and they don't even know it.
That's right. I mean, most people don't. You don't remember. It's so horrific, and that's the whole thing. It traumatizes them to the point that the mind splits and builds walls around the memory. So it's called trauma-based mind control. They're controlled like a robot with no memory of the actual event, severely traumatic event that led them to be brainwashed. So they have no clue. They know something's wrong. They do know something is wrong. They can't figure it out. They're kept surrounded by handlers who just try to convince them that they're crazy. And they're kept within these people's networks. So everyone around them is part of it, whether it's social workers, psychologists, police, neighbors, telling them all the time that they're the problem, that they're crazy, they're bad. They know something's wrong, and they know that the people around them aren't sane, but they mind control won't occur to them. The average person couldn't possibly figure that out. When I lived in Los Angeles, Barry Gordon was linked up with Gilla Orion Bohemian, whose front was at Child Welfare in Beverly Hills, and Dr. Gerner, a psychiatrist at UCLA. A number of the girls being run by Barry Gordon were in therapy with Gilla Orion Bohemian on, I believe it was like 912 and a half South Robertson Boulevard in Beverly Hills. She had a private office there that she shared with another psychologist, and everyone had to pay cash. So she wasn't reporting this to the IRS, obviously. And these girls were all mind control victims. Through her, she would get them to Dr. Gerner and get them on Section 8, welfare, and the girls were piled up with each other in bedrooms at welfare apartments, and basically given just enough food to eat. If they were going to be prostituted, they would be given transportation to get there and back. They had no freedom, no money. So Gilla Orion Bohemian, Dr. Gerner, and Barry Gordon, and probably I would imagine grease a few more palms, were getting these girls welfare and then taking all of it from them. These girls were also heavily brainwashed, and they were used for prostitution. Some of them were mind-controlled assassins. I mean, one girl who was on the cover of Barry Gordon's company, using the name Angel Records, had 7 or 8 different names, German, Spanish, many different names. Angel was seeing Gilla Orion Bohemian and Dr. Gerner. She was given freedom because she was mind-controlled enough that she went along and didn't ask too many questions. And her welfare was taken from her. However, she was allowed to keep some of the money from her assignments and prostitution. She wasn't, as far as I know, I wasn't sensing evil from her. I was sensing that she was completely blitzed out of her mind to the point that she didn't question and didn't fight. So girls that were highly intelligent, beautiful, and didn't fight were living at a better standard than girls who fought. If you fought, they would strip you down to nothing, hold you under armed guard, drug you, and if you continued to fight, like Michael Jackson, LaToya Jackson, Mickey Rourke, myself, they implemented Dr. Jose Delgado's psychosurgical mutilation program. So these girls were used as operatives, used in prostitution, and put on welfare, and the money divided up with Jill Atlanta Fahimian, Barry Gordon, and Dr. Gerner. And I'm sure that, yes, there were other palms that had to be greased in these programs.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow. Okay, this is more of a personal question that I'm sure our listeners would like to know a little bit more, because your story is truthfully a really heartbreaking one, unbelievable one, and I will probably have to go through great lengths to get this online, but nevertheless it will get online. How have they manipulated you, your life, your mind, and what did they do to you when you started to speak out against what they have done to you and what they're doing to children and women?
Well, I've been subjected to satanic ritual abuse since birth. I mean, I believe that my very, and it's hard to know, but as the daughter of Prince Karyamaka Khan, I believe that the very notion of my conception was an idea brought about through this council with my father, and I was created in a ritual. I have no way of knowing if my mother was a willing cultist. I don't know who she is, or a rape victim. I know that I've been subjected to satanic ritual abuse from birth, and that rules were broken, and I was subjected to horrific abuse by David Rockefeller through the U.S. Naval Intel CIA at the hands of Wiley Duke Nichols and Cheryl Jean Starkey Nichols. I mean, I would add that, the Nichols were found to be criminally insane, and police say that Wiley Duke Nichols is a mad dog. That it's very easy to tell what he is and what he would do if he thought he could get away with it. I was told that during police interrogations, he behaved like a mad dog, yelled, screamed, cursed, verbally attacked police, threw it up in police officers' detectives' face, interrogating him that he was above the law. No one believes that David Rockefeller does not know what these people are, or didn't know what they were. David Rockefeller and the people at the top had no intention of following rules. They put me with mad dogs because I think the idea was to destroy me. I've been subjected to rape, sodomy, satanic rituals, drugging, electric shocks, sleep deprivation, food deprivation. I continued to fight them, and I was subjected to horrific beating. I mean, at 11, directly following the birth of twin rape babies, achieved through fertility drugs and hormones given to me by age 9. Actually, by age 4.5, I had tiny breasts and needed a training bra by the age of 5. This is not normal, but it is written about in the military's pedophile program. Pedophiles like their tiny little victims to have breasts, because of course a normal 5-year-old child doesn't need a training bra. At age 9, they were giving me fertility drugs and hormones to bring about my period, and by age 11, twin rape babies. Directly following this, I was beaten and bludgeoned to the point that I needed reconstructive surgery to my face and my insides. They have subjected me to predictive programming. I think that they tried to strip me of maternal instincts while they were determined to get a rape baby out of me through demonology to be used by the military. They're absolutely terrified of me falling in love and procreating children in love. That would, of course, have a different agenda, and that would be serving God, because I am someone with special abilities. everything in my life. And prior to my escape 6.5 years ago, I was just subjected to horrific torture, rape, abuse, trauma-based mind control, drugging, and kept under armed guard while being heavily drugged. Again, I mean, I'm in an occult area. I'm renting an apartment, which is part of a home owned by a woman with phone number 666, who's clearly involved with occult neighbors. I mean, she's an old woman, and I see her out at like 11:30 at night and midnight, talking over the fence or going down the street to chat with other occult members. It's just bizarre. A woman that age doesn't need to go and have whispering secret conversations with people at 11:30 at night or midnight. And I should also add that because I was walking my dogs this late and noticed this pattern, it stopped. Or, you know, now it's being conducted even later or in the middle of the night or whatever. They just didn't want a phone record. I'm being heavily watched by police and other foreign military intel. So I think that, you know, this was part of trying to keep some level of secrecy up, but it's just bizarre for a 70-year-old woman to be constantly going out at midnight and whispering with other people from the neighborhood. I've been placed in a clearly occult area for control. I was set up with roommates who, you know, they keep me in jobs that are controlled by occult groups. I mean, my last job, Linux Hills Physical Therapy, at 214 East 82nd Street, is nothing more than a front for people involved with the occult and mind-controlled human slavery, human trafficking. When I fought the abuse and programming and sexual assault at Linux Hills Physical Therapy, I was fired. The groups that I've gone to for help are all funded by the State Department. I don't get any help. I ask for help getting a job because I can't work. I can't leave the country, and I can only work for cash off the book. I had to take 2 roommates, and clearly my roommates are set up. As long as I had a job, they had jobs. They were supposedly in healthcare. I'm a therapist. I practice Chinese medicine. One roommate was supposedly a full-time nurse and a full-time student. The other was supposedly 21 and a full-time home health aide taking pre-med courses. The minute I lost my job, all of a sudden both of my roommates are home 24/7. Their schedules have changed to fit mine. So I remain in their network. I remain controlled. I remain in an occult area surrounded by occultists.
Wow. Yeah, I'm not going to get into the similarities in our life, but I am the same way, and I totally know what you're talking about. And one of the things I would like everyone to understand is me, myself, and Laurel are targeted individuals, TIs. And if you get a chance to look up on the net, look up public policing. This is something that the occult has actually made legal. What public policing actually is the police are actually involved in isolating a certain individual, and they can go to all of your neighbors and tell them lies about you and even pay them to keep tabs on you, to do whatever they wish. And usually the way this goes is they made this legal because there are cops that are in the occult, and they put someone like Laurel in the area that she's in, and they're already informed about her and the situation. But if anyone were to go look and say, well, why is this person here or watching this person or this cop? Oh, they're a TI under public policing. And public policing never tells you the truth. It is instated by the shadow government for high-level operatives and basically used to stalk people. And this is what is exactly happening to Laurel right now. And also, one of the main things I want people to understand is they keep her around occultists because if anything were to happen to her, or if she were to get into a fight and the police were to come out and ask all the people around her what happened,
that's right,
they would all say,
I didn't see anything.
Yeah, I didn't say anything, nothing to actually back up the true story or give her somewhat credibility. This is the occult, and this is how they work. And also, remote mind control. This is how they try to implement triggers and reinstate triggers, erase memories.
That's right.
While you're sleeping, and a lot of the times your neighbors have these, they're called microwave weapons, or if you are in a house that has a basement or network basement or underground facilities, they come from underground. But these things can be used through Wi-Fi, through telephones, through specific beeps. It's called remote mind control. So, Laurel, can you tell our listeners a little bit about remote mind control so they'll really grasp what they've done to you, what they're trying to do to you, and how, I mean, the reason why this is so important for them to use and to surround you with these people to control you is because they don't want you to fully gain your complete memory back, and everything that the listeners have heard is from her getting her memory back. And it's right. Because she's been fighting. All of these things that everyone has heard today, at some time and point, they tried to erase from her memory.
That's right. It's about control. It's about keeping what they call classified information vital to, quote, national security, which is really just horrific crimes against humanity and defenseless little children and defenseless people from public knowledge. It's also about destroying a mind control victim.
Silent weapons. That's what they're also
right. Microwaves. I mean, it doesn't just erase your memory. You also have to deal with migraines and just feeling physically ill. It's hard to function when you're dizzy and you have migraines, and you know you're feeling kind of nauseous and just feeling weak and you know constantly being made to just feel like hell. It's really hard to work like that. We were talking about both that's been done to both of us, and I feel like hell today.
Me too.
And you feel like you haven't slept, you have a migraine, you're dizzy. It makes it very hard to function, and when you stop someone from functioning and they can't leave the country and they can't work legally and they have to work for slave wages off the books cash, and they're too sick to go out and look for a job, or so sick that it affects their performance at work, if you cut them off some money and they wind up, which has happened to me, after a physical attack, and I had a broken leg, double sprain, and torn ligaments, they're living in a basement, eating rotten food, you've completely shut that person down. I'm now in a position where I'm desperately trying to find a job, and I'm home today doing the interview, but I have to say I'd be home today anyway because I'm physically ill from what they've been doing to me. This remote access is also about being able to easily control a mind-controlled CIA, U.S. military operatives anywhere in the world via a cell phone or a computer. The whole motto in U.S. military intel CIA is that you control your slaves. You don't want handling the slaves to control you and your life. So mind control is also made that large numbers of people can be easily handled via remote access. which also makes it easy for handlers not to be detected with high-level operatives, because everything is done by cell phones that can easily be changed, destroyed, and aren't traceable.
And I'd also like to add about BrainGate. For you people that don't know about BrainGate, BrainGate is a program that is based off silent sound. Silent sound was patented in 1947, and it basically involves transmitting radio frequencies into the brain on a subliminal subconscious level. It is very real. Now, BrainGate is silent sound taken a step further for their supercomputers. What BrainGate actually is, it is a computer program that was developed to actually decipher your brain algorithms and patterns into a sentence and thought that can be transmitted and read by a computer. So what they actually do now is they incorporate the silent sound technique and inject memories, words, conversations. I mean, how many of you out there, we all think to ourselves, and you just get a word that pops into your head. Well, when they do this, it's called pushing. What I mean by pushing is, say I'm thinking about, oh, I'm thirsty. And then all of a sudden Coca-Cola pops up in my head, I want a Coke. But normally you don't want a Coke. But that increased sales. And this is what they do in commercials. This is called pushing. So this is also a form of remote programming and conditioning and subliminal brainwashing and mind control. And we are all subjected to it in the United States on different levels, and some more so than others. And it goes so deep, people just are not ready to comprehend what they're actually doing with their supercomputers, with Wi-Fi, with microwave technology. I mean, it all is linked up, and they can all beam messages into our head that on a subconscious level we think it's our mind suggesting things to us.
Well,
but it's not.
Through Hollywood is nothing more than a front for the CIA, U.S. military intel, and the Mafia being their puppets. That's just a big, it's a front, and it's a brainwashing tool. Television, film, the controlled media, and then it's backed up and reinforced with their puppets at the pulpit, so-called religious leaders who are really working for CIA, for an intel group, teachers, university professors. You know, it's all backed up by their puppets and reinforced.
Wow. Okay, this is the last question, Laurel. And it's a very simple question, and you seem to know a lot. I think it's going to be the biggest question that's going to piss off the CIA and all of their subsidiary companies and etc. I really don't care. I'm actually sick of them stalking me and you. So here's the question. Laura, what are the companies and front organizations that you know of, just any that you can think of, that you've dealt with, that you're able to remember? I know for me, we had deep discussions about Amway because my father was part of Amway, and with that conversation and the stuff that me and you have been talking about, I have realized, I grew up in a cult and I knew it, and it was a memory that was taken from me. And Amway and all those people I grew up with are very much occultists, and my father was the head salesman of Amway when they first started out. But, I mean, what most people don't know about Amway is Amway's products are, yes, they're good for you, but they're not good for the earth. Because in order for Amway to get products that are non-toxic, they have to take the toxins out of their products. And that's what people don't understand. What do they do with the toxins? Well, what my father ended up doing was went from an Amway salesman to have multi-million-dollar contracts from, base in San Antonio where all the Nazis went and perfected Project Phoenix, disposing of Amway hazardous waste disposal with Texas Oil Waste and Chemicals. Amway was just one, and so Laurel, tell our listeners some front organizations and companies run by the CIA, Satanic Freemason organizations, and get into what they use them for and how they use them.
Well, a number of the people around me, including some Ismailis, are involved with Amway, which is absolutely involved. I mean, they're involved with programs to feed children in third world countries. They're involved with the United Nations. They've received awards from the United Nations. They're clearly a front and clearly being utilized as a front by occultists. However, I mean, I would also say there are a lot of people that just believe in the product and get involved with sales that have no knowledge of what is going on and is vein running through the company. But it's controlled by occultists, absolutely. Lennox Hills Physical Therapy and their offshoot Greenstone Spa in Brooklyn on Water Street are fronts for occultists involved in human trafficking. Greenstone and another Medi Spa were opened up for Eugene Sazanoff and Elena Waxman for their work with me. All of the so-called therapists there and all of the patients are all occultists involved in occult activity and human slave trading.
Hollywood.
Model Quality and Diane Bennett's Beautiful Women, Successful Men dating service. Harrison Gray and Craig Donaldson's Model Quality is just, these are CIA fronts for moving around sex slaves and also luring and trapping beautiful young girls into sex slavery. Ronnie Spa in New York City is a front. They run ads in a lot of foreign magazines and newspapers looking for girls who are here with, that can easily be made to disappear. They run the ad. Dr. Ronnie, I've actually experienced Ronnie spas, and Dr. Ronnie interviewed me, and her questions were really bizarre. It had nothing to do with my training and everything to do about who I was, where I had been born, and did I have any support system. And that, Ronnie employs people with no training and no license as estheticians and massage therapists, and is willing to train them and even sponsor them to gain their work visa and citizenship in America. This is to lure vulnerable young girls that can be made to disappear. It's clearly a front. There were 15 locations of Ronnie spas, and if you go into any of them, there's never enough business to even keep the doors open. So it was very clear to me that something is going on. Her private cell phone number that you call to get an interview had 666 in the number. Having gone through the interview process, I can assure you that it's another one of these fronts that just looks for girls that are vulnerable and can be made to disappear. Because there's no one, they're not in close touch with family, or they don't have family, and they're over here and don't have any close friends. They can easily be made to disappear. In Hollywood, Cinema Secrets, Joe Blasco, the Westmore Academy, these are occultists involved with the CIA. Their makeup academies and makeup schools and makeup business is a front. And they do teach prosthetics and special effects to operatives as well. Dr. Danae Montague King, DNK International, again, it's like the who's who of the CIA. It's worldwide, and it's all about, it's a front for the CIA. Hollywood is one big front for the CIA, U.S. military mafia. A lot of the stars and producers are heavily involved. They're either occultists or they're victims. There's no in between. There may be people with marginal success who feel like Hollywood is a dangerous place, but, you know, they're very talented and studied, and they keep their nose clean, and they enjoy their marginal, minor success. But anybody with any kind of success at all is one of two things: a victim or an occultist and a willing participant.
Wow.
In New York City, Chill Spa on 33rd, owned by Howard Kohlenberg, whose wife was clearly a victim of human slavery, and they adopted a baby from Puerto Rico who was being programmed. Everyone at Chill Spa had a bizarre life, and which was exactly like mine. Chill was a front. Howard Kohlenberg was involved with human slavery. When I did my first interview with Bishop Hosea Bradley, all of a sudden, Chill Spa on 33rd and Park Avenue closed its doors. And Howard Kohlenberg's phone number was immediately disconnected. It's bizarre. Spa Lab is a spa in New York City, and the owner and the assistant manager are occultists involved with human sex slavery. And the place runs for prostitution and sensual massage, and it's basically a front. And a lot of the people that come in there are involved with the occult and satanic ritual abuse, mind control, human slavery.
Wow. Okay. I would like to add fashion TV, especially with my personal experience, and when I started to come out and expose the female cartel in Romania. The owners of Fashion TV, Romania, is Nicagaru. They call him in Romania the Claw. He has contacts with the triads, the Claw. This is why they call him the Claw. Everyone knows. He's very feared. He also runs Club Space, Music, Ibiza. Those are all his chains. He might have the nice little dress bougie guy in front, but it's all him behind them. And with Fashion TV, what most people don't know is these girls, the girls that you see on Fashion TV that aren't the high-end models, just the pretty models that are on so many of the other shows. One of the things that I was told by Interpol and other secret agents was that they parade these women on TV, Fashion TV, and if someone likes them, they put in a bid, and then that girl gets told, oh, we have a job for you, oh, this, and they're gone. So Fashion TV is actually marketing women for the black market on TV. And this trade actually comes from the Ukraine. The two owners that started Fashion TV are from the Ukraine. They were heavily into the transportation and exportation of women and children. And their company got so big, they had to legitimize it, and Fashion TV was it. They need a way to launder all of that money and to continue to bring in beautiful girls and to make it legit, because you don't get a receipt for a human body. That's what most people don't understand. I will post the Fashion TV link up under this video, that the Ducat officers were involved in. Ducat is the Romanian secret police. I really want people to become aware, and I would like to make a personal message to the Central Intelligence Agency and to all the people that are hacking Laurel Aston's phone, bothering her, walking up to her, all the occultists around her and around me. Leave us alone. You're exposed. Continuing to do what you do is only going to make things worse on you and bring about your demise even faster. And for the public, I want you to know that me and Laurel have been talking a lot, and we've decided that we could really do a lot more if we were together. So within the next 3 weeks to a month, I will be driving to New York to pick up Laurel out of that occultist neighborhood and bring her back to Texas, and will not leave her side, and we will continue to do these videos because we are trying to speak for the millions and millions of women and children that have died, that are still enslaved in this cartel, that get raped every day because the cops won't lift a finger. No one will lift a finger. Everyone's too scared to say anything. Everyone's getting paid off. I mean, the
fear is real.
Yeah.
And I can only say that what they do and what they threaten them with and what they've seen, I just want to say I don't blame them for being scared.
So that's why me and Laurel are doing what we're doing. Laurel is in a very hard situation right now. Me, myself, I'm not in the best situation. We are both in situations where we are being handled heavily. We are being manipulated heavily. We are being targeted with microwave weapons heavily all the time because of who we know, what we know, and what we've done. So this is why we're trying to make these videos. And for anybody that would like to donate to Laurel Aston or me, please send me an email at djzakaos@yahoo.com. That's DJZAKAOS @yahoo.com. And I mean, we do need help. Laurel does not have a job. She goes out looking for a job every day, and we talk and we try to decide if this is a place that, you know, is not a setup, or if they can come in and get to her and use a trigger and try to manipulate her or do whatever. Is this safe for her? She is alone. She's been alone since she was 4 years old. She's putting her life on the line to wake you up and to bring the truth to the public, because the truth is horrific. And we want the American government and the CIA to stop raping and killing kids. It's as simple as that. We want the cops to go in and arrest these people. It's so easy for them to shoot a minority when he's going for his wallet, or a Mexican person trying to look for a better life crossing the border. But when they get one of these pedophile, governmental, presidential motherfuckers, they always get off. And these guys kill, rape, maim, destroy kids and women to have rape babies to continue their Luciferian beliefs. I really want people to understand that, yes, we do need help. I am being public about this because when I do get $500, that's how much the gas is going to take for me to drive to New York and drive back here to get Laurel. You know, when I do get that money, I will go get her. And no one will stop me. And if they have any plans on trying to make me wreck or do anything or whatever, and if I do come up missing, you know what happened to me. Just like I strongly urge you to listen to Savelli. I will post her videos under this link. Savelli is a Illuminati mind controller. She was trained how to control the victims. And she came out, and the person that gave her an interview, he came up missing after the interview. He was a radio talk host. So I'm sorry, I'm not him. I'm a bit smarter than him. And I will probably have a hard time getting this online, considering that YouTube blocked the first video for over 4 days, and I had to put it on SoundCloud because, you know, obviously Google and YouTube have a problem with us exposing Ted Gunderson and all of the other FBI, CIA, COINTEL pedophiles. Well, I don't have a problem with it. And when me and Laurel when our lives are over and we're standing before God and God asks us, what did we do with our life? This is what we did with our life. Don't be scared. Don't be afraid to talk. If you're a victim, send me an email. Contact me at Xformers on Facebook, Xformers. That is my webpage. That's how I was able to meet Laurel. She was posting such incredible information on my posts and furthering the knowledge of these posts. I was very, very, very impressed because her knowledge is impeccable. It is real. Anyone that says, you know, this woman does not know what she's talking about, you're out of your mind. She has names, dates, streets, people, times, companies. These things would take somebody forever to just put together and falsify. So again,
I would like to add that that honest police detectives have done a very expensive, elaborate 2-year investigation, and they've come back with the conclusion that what I say checks out. Anybody who says it doesn't is clearly part of it, because there is an ongoing police investigation. It was already determined that I check out and that what I say can be verified, and that a lot of what I exposed was able to be verified. Some of the military stuff, they had no way to investigate it because I'm highly classified. Not even President Obama has access to my records or to the Nichols records, who posed as my biological parents with state birth certificate. But I've already been proven as being the real deal by honest police and detectives conducting a very expensive 2-year investigation. This is also why many foreign governments have threatened legal action against the United States and have petitioned the United Nations, among other courts, for my safety and immediate release.
Well,
and this can all be verified.
Well, so Laurel, I just, you know, I've told you about the United Nations, and
absolutely.
And
but my point is that this has all been verified by foreign governments, honest police detectives. I think anybody who tried to step up and discredit me would clearly be part of it, not just a disbeliever.
Yeah, and not to mention, I was in Paris and I applied for asylum, and you know what they did to me to get me to come back to the United States. So, I mean, it is, the whole system is corrupt, and the only way that we can truthfully protect ourselves is by making videos like this and exposing them and doing a thing what I call overcover, because the thing is they operate on secrecy. And if you remember what Yeshua said, nothing of God is done in secret, because everything of God is love and it is meant to be shared. So again, I would like to thank you for your time. If anyone is a victim and would like to talk to me and to come out and expose things, please contact me over Xformers or my email, djzakaos@yahoo.com. If you would like to donate to us, to help me personally, go get Laurel from New York and bring her back to Texas so we can make interviews in the same room and continue to do this on a much more professional scale. Again, I would like to apologize for the sound quality, because right now we are recording with a recording mechanism that I made up. Laurel they will not allow her to have a computer. If she has any kind of communication device, they will break into her home and break it, destroy it. All she has is a cell phone. Her cell phone is consistently hacked. The other day, she tried to send her CV, her bio, her resume to get a job, and it just disappeared from her Gmail. This is what they're doing to this woman. They don't want her with food. They don't want her to have a place to stay. And then they put agents in her own home. So I humbly ask anyone that is willing to donate to my cause, to her cause, please get in touch with me. I will send you my routing number, my account number, whatever. I am really, literally trying to get this person out of there, and it's going to cost me about $500 round trip to drive from New York, or drive from Texas to New York, but I will do that. And I am actually looking for money to do that. And within the next 3 to 4 weeks, I will do that. So I'm just making it a record, because the best thing to do is to just put it out there to the universe. And if these demonic, satanic motherfuckers still wish to fuck with us and to think that we're so stupid, and they spend so much money to destabilize us and to discredit us, can you give us some of that money and leave us the fuck alone? Because we're trying to save kids and innocent children that you don't care about. So thank you for your time. God bless you, Laurel. You are the most incredible, amazing woman, and you're so strong. Is there anything that you would like to add before we go?
Yeah, I mentioned an interview with Bishop Hosea Bradley. I think it should never be mentioned without saying that the interview was a setup. Bishop Hosea Bradley was 20 years in Army Intel, CIA, directly following the interviews which went viral worldwide. The bishop and his now ex-wife, an agent, Minister Madeline Bradley, again referring to puppets at the pulpit. She's also a police officer in Austin, Texas, began calling and telling me about break-ins to their home, their church, their car, and threats on their then 13-year-old child. The police, honest police here in New York City, honest police at the 44th Precinct in the Bronx, told me it was a lie. There were no break-ins, and that the bishop had never filed a police report on any of these so-called break-ins and stolen property or destroyed property. And that the whole thing was a setup because Bishop Hosea Bradley then and his wife begged for my silence, trying to guilt me into being quiet because of all the trouble they were supposedly having. The whole thing was a setup to silence my voice. And the Bradleys, who are now divorced, were just highly dysfunctional CIA operatives.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, Laurel, and thank you, listeners.
I appreciate it.
Again, X-Formers at Facebook, or if you have any donations, any help is much appreciated. DJ Zacchaeus at yahoo.com. And this is just the start of it. So stay blessed, people, and continue to walk in the light.